I am proudly displaying my I voted sticker, and that's what we're going to be talking about today is the importance of voting and staying civically engaged when you are in private practice. So it is primary day here in Florida, and so I dropped my son off at daycare, and my husband and I went and voted. I always vote. I love voting. I am a believer in voting. I think we should all exercise our right to vote. And as therapists, I think it's really important that we stay informed about what is going on within our government, what our elected officials are doing, and how it impacts the counseling field. So I'm going to talk about two things that are going on for mental health counselors and therapists in general. And it's happening across many of the states, and it's happening across many of the disciplines. So I like to stay civically engaged because I know how people vote impacts my business, it impacts my personal life, it impacts my practice, it impacts my clients. And so I want to make sure that I'm researching people, I'm looking at whether they talk about mental health on their website. I was kind of surprised a couple of years ago. I was researching candidates, and a lot of candidates just don't talk about mental health on their websites. And I'm like, that's such a, a very important, area to discuss. And it wasn't even talked about, even though they're voting on things all the time that impact mental health. And so when candidates have a blurb about mental health, I'm like, yes, I'm not necessarily automatically going to vote for them, but I know that that's something that maybe they have taken some time to think about. They've maybe crafted some policy or they have some plans for mental health. So that's really important. So the two things that are on my radar personally are the counseling compact, which is for mental health counselors, but I know that the psychologist, APA, I'm not as familiar with that one as I am with the counseling compact, which impacts LPCs, LMHCs, but I know other disciplines are trying to get interstate licensure. So the Psych Pack is the one for psychologists. And basically, there have been a slew of states that have all signed that they will allow for licensure across the states, which I think is so important. With the really emergence of online therapy, I think it's so important for consumers to have access to providers that will help them. We should not be limited just by our state. One thing happens all the time is I have all of these teenagers, college students that come see me over the summer, then they go back to school, they're in Pennsylvania, and then you're not supposed to see them. And it's like, we've already established care. They want to do online. They're not high risk. Why wouldn't I see them? But because of the limits of licensure, you're not allowed to see them. And so it really is limiting for the practitioner. And so I think it's really important that that kind of legislation goes forward. And so are your senators, are your congressmen aware of this? Are they passing this? Are you writing letters to them? Are your boards involved? Are your local associations? So for us, the Florida Mental Health Counselors Association was so instrumental in getting this passed in Florida. And Florida is part of the states that are in favor of the counseling compact. And that makes me so proud because I think it's so important that we advocate for ourselves, that we have people advocating for us. The Florida Mental Health Counselors Association actually has a lobbyist, and she is fantastic. Their lobbying firm is great. And so are you aware of what your state or local association is doing? Are there lobbyists? Do you know what the national organizations are a part of? People are always like, why should I be a part of the national organization? Why should I give my money? I'm not getting anything back. But look at what their government relations committees are doing, what they're advocating for. Now, the other thing that is being advocated for is for LMHCs and LMFTs to be able to accept Medicare. I think that is so important. I cannot tell you, see, my hands are going. This right here is, that I am passionate about it, right? I can't tell you how many calls we get Do you accept Medicare? Do you accept Medicare? Do you accept Medicare? And we cannot accept Medicare as LMHCs and LMFTs, and people do not understand it. You can say, oh, only psychologists and LCSWs, but aren't you a therapist? And why not? Don't you have the same education? Don't you have the same licensure? Don't you have this, that? The consumers do not understand why there would be any difference. If you're a therapist, why can't you accept my, Medicare? You accept Blue Cross Blue Shield. Everybody in your office accepts Blue Cross Blue Shield. Why don't you accept Medicare? It is so important for access for people for all disciplines that have a license that's pretty much covered under the same, umbrella to be able to accept Medicare. And are your congressmen, again, are your senators aware? Are they lobbying for this? Are they talking about it? Not lobbying, but are they talking about it? Are they voting for it? Are they aware of it? Have you written to them? Has your association written to them? And this is why voting is so important, because you want to make sure that you're voting with people who are in line with your values, people who understand mental health, who will advocate for the things that are important to you. And so I always think it's important to do your research about candidates, find candidates that align with you, and to really advocate for the mental health world. I'm going to talk about how you can directly impact your, civic engagement. But first, I want to thank our sponsor, TherapyNotes. If you're looking for an electronic health record that is full service, one that can really help you run your practice, whether you have an in-person practice or a virtual practice, they do have a free telehealth option. If you are private pay or insurance-based, you can bill through TherapyNotes. You can bill the insurances, and you can accept credit cards. They have a portal. People can put a payment right, a credit card right on there. You can send paperwork to them. You can run reports. It is so great. So I highly recommend TherapyNotes. So think about how you want to get involved. Will you join your local association? Will you join your state association? Will you join your national association? Will you write to your congressmen and senators, both at the state level and at the national level? Will you encourage other people to vote like I'm doing today? Will you educate people in a way that is meaningful to you about mental health and the positive effects of incorporating mental health into various aspects of people's lives? Will you increase access for people? Will you advocate for your clients? Will you listen to your clients and hear what's important to them and advocate for them in a way that, again, aligns with your values? What will you do to impact your world and impact the world of your clients, right? And I just think voting is just one way that we do it today. It just happens to be that topic. So whenever your primaries are, whenever your elections are this year, I hope you go out and vote and you make an impact on your world. I'll see you soon, everybody. Bye.